Hey everyone, it's Mario Vegas and welcome back to Tank Zone. How many of us have a game that we really love to play? Spend the time in front of our PCs and sometimes even spend the money to purchase in-game items. But how often we think or analyze the perspective of that game, how populated it is, and is it really worth it to stick around and continue to play, or maybe it is worth to find a new game with more players, shorter waiting time, and a better future perspective. Although it is impossible to predict how any game will perform or be populated in the future, because anything can happen in these crazy days. New features can be added to the game that will drag players to game, can change owners, that can change everything in a game. So player taste or gamer society culture, if you wish, may change. Probably it can. Game can gain or lose momentum over the time, and a lot of other unpredictable things may happen, right? I do not want to advocate any of the games or suggest not to play. But still, we can use already known data and trends to analyze how perspective game looks from point of view carrying on or start to play it today. And I talk about tank games, online tank multiplayer games. So I took 9 tank games for PC platform and used steamplaycount.com to retrieve data. Alternatively, you can use Steam charts, which essentially will give you same data on a bit less fancy screen layout. For sake of aesthetic and a bit more fancier appearance, I picked steamplaycount.com, especially for you, just to make things look a little bit better and nicer on the screen. For starter, let's arrange those games by a 24-hour player peak, starting with lowest count. Number 9 place is Armored Warfare with 250 players as a 24-hour peak. Then comes Red Orchestra 2 with 264, Panzer Corps 2 with 849, Steel Division with higher 1155, Heroes and Generals with 2082 players in a peak period in last 24 hours, World of Tanks with 3867, Company of Heroes with 7,319, Arma 3 with 16,413, and War Thunder with 51,953 players in a peak period in the last 24 hours. Okay, now let's go into each game chart. Take a look at that get active player count change during the last 3 years period, and look at the game's charts trend and get better perspective and idea where it may lead in the future. But be aware that we talk about player activity, not a total player amount, which is absolutely a different thing and usually and typically is higher than player activity count. Let's start with the Armored Warfare. Looking at its chart, we can see that the game has a stable player activity between 250 and 500 on a regular basis. It has a small active player count, and in the last 3 years, player count has been raised only by 64 players, but situation looks quite stable. Red Orchestra 2. Since 2015, game count slowly decreased with one odd peak between 2017 and 2018. In the last 3 years, though, game lost around 420 player activity and looks kind of fading. Definitely not upgoing trend. Panzer Corps 2. In the last 3 years, this game lost 2,545 players and now maintains player activity around 1,000, which looks stable and regular. Steel Division 2. Its player activity chart looks stable as well. No decline, no significant rise, with only 209 player activity rise during the last 3-year period. Stable game with around 1,000 players regularly online. Heroes and Generals. Looking at the chart, it's kind of turning into decline and has lost around 2,190 players activity in the last 3 years period, but it is still has a bit more than 1,000 active players every single day. World of Tanks. During the last 3 years, the game appeared of kind of rising, but then just recently suffered a slight drop in players count, and therefore it gained only 68 new players activity in last 3 years. But the game chart looks stable and, as I said, appears slowly rising. Company of Heroes 2. Since 2019, an odd peak in a gamer's activity, now it looks like swimming in a calm, stable bay with a bit more than 7,000 daily players activity and 386 activity gain in last 3 years period. Arma 3. This game suffered a largest players activity fall between all what we look today. Minus 8,463 in the last 3 years. However, it still maintains more than 20,000 players activity every day and the chart looks promisingly stable. War Thunder. This tank game monster not only has the largest gamers activity between all games that features tanks gameplay, not only gained a staggering 36,799 players activity in last 3 years, but it sits in 17th place by popularity among all games in the world. Now let's finally summarize all that in the table to have a better perspective and help you to decide about which games you may want to play, which ones you may skip, change or do anything. So, and as you can see, there are 4 games that lost a significant percentage of the player's activity in comparison to the current 24-hour peak. I talk about the Panzer Corps 2 with nearly 300% decline, Red Orchestra 2 with 159% decline, and Heroes of the Generals with 105% players activity decrease. Arma 3 lost 50% in comparison to current players activity in 24 hours, but it maintains a large activity and may not suffer from that decline so much. So I would say it's still stable. Company of Heroes, World of Tanks, Steel Division 2 and Armored Warfare maintain stability, with Armored Warfare doing the best of them, gaining 25%. However, total player activity cannot shine over its rivals. And finally, War Thunder that gained 70% of players activity in last 3 years if we compare that to the current 24-hour peak activity. At the end of the day, it is everyone's personal choice which game to play. I do not advocate any game and I do not suggest not to play any game as well. But looking at this simple and in sometimes rough comparison, looks like favorites are War Thunder, Arma 3, Company of Heroes, World of Tanks, and Steel Division 2. That would make our top 5 most perspective games to play and spend time on. So, as always, if you have something to say, agree or disagree, your experience and everything what you want to say, put that in the comments and we will discuss that. That's it for today. Thank you for watching and following Tank Zone. Have a wonderful day. I wish you a success and spend a great time playing your favorite tank game. And I see you in the next episode.